In this web tutorial, I'm going to show you some of the things that you can do with Google Scholar. Google Scholar is actually much more flexible and easier to use in some ways than Google Books alone or JSTOR. A lot of what you'll see on Google Scholar comes from those two sites, but not everything. The limitation on JSTOR is that it only includes articles from journals that they catalog. With Google Scholar, that's not the case. It includes articles from other journals as well. And at the same time, allows you to search Google Books. So it's a two-in-one service. Now, I'm just going to do a simple search for information related to someone that I'm interested in as a possible research topic. Emmeline Pankhurst, who was a British suffragette in Edwardian England. So I'm just going to type her name in. I'm not going to narrow it down any further because at this point I don't have any particular research question in mind. This is just searching to see what's available and to start getting literature that I can read for background information and in order to come up with a research question. So just keep it simple for right now. Emmeline Pankhurst, hit search. And we can see already that too many results have come up to be able to look at each one. Now, that's not a problem at the moment because I don't have a particular research question in mind. And some of these are things that you don't really need to see at this point. Where it says citation, that's Google Scholar telling you that someone has cited something about Emmeline Pankhurst, but you can't actually look at it directly. So in order to narrow things down just a little bit and to clear the screen, I'm going to come over here and where it says include patents and include citations, I'm going to unclick include citations. I'm going to get rid of that. And you can see that the results count has already dropped. Now, Google Scholar handily tells you what it is that you're looking at and if it's available at UGent. Now, the only way to get this on the right-hand side of the screen is to make sure that you're logged on to a UGent network computer. So use one of the computers in the computer lab or one of the computers at the Book and Torin, or log your own computer on via the virtual private network, which you can set up at home following the instructions provided to you by the people at the ICT. Other things, just because they come up, that does not mean that you have direct access. Like, we don't have direct access to this. It's at Google Books, but because it was published in 2003, you probably don't have a complete view of the book because it's still in copyright. If we click on this, it takes us directly to Google Books and that particular book. And we can see, scrolling down, some pages are omitted from this book preview. It's just the preview. You don't get the whole thing. However, you can always check and see if we have it in the UGent catalog. And if not, you can order it via interlibrary loan. And it's good to scroll through, do a little reading, see if this is something that you really want. Is it really scientific? Is it something that you can actually cite as a reference? And you should always do that if you can before ordering something through interlibrary loan, because it is a paying service. It's not free. We click back, and it takes us back to the Google Scholar search results. Then there are things like this, Taylor and Francis. It doesn't say, do we have full text at UGent? But how she may have influenced America and the suffragette movement there, that's interesting to me. I might be interested in doing some research in that area. So I'm going to click on this. And I can download the abstract, which is good because that would give me further information as to, is this something that I really want to read? Do I really want to look at? And I can download a preview. So just part of the article. And if it still looks interesting to me, then I could always order this through interlibrary loan using the information available. Going to go back to the results. Here's another article, Deeds Not Words, The Daily Lives of Militants, Suffragettes in Edwardian Britain. And it says full text is available at UGent. So I'm just going to click here. And this screen comes up. Now, what we have access to through UGent is an electronic version. You can find out if the paper version is available at the university or even in Belgium if you want, but since we have access to the electronic versions, there's not really any need to do that. Just click here. And because our university has an agreement with this publisher saying that we have access to Women's Studies International Forum, this screen will come up and you have the abstract. And you can download the entire thing. You also have access to the references page. So all of the pages, all of the papers and books that this article references are listed here alphabetically, which will help you find even more literature. And see, this is something that we wouldn't find if we had just gone to JSTOR. The other thing that's interesting about this page, the UGent entry for this particular article, is that it has this. Users interested in this article also expressed an interest in the following. Which is like when you go to Amazon.com and you search for a book, then it'll have a little other users also purchased this volume, which will bring up things that are related, things that other people looked at after looking at this. And you can check out these titles too and save them to a referencing program, including EndNote. But you can tell by looking at the title, some of them are more interesting than others with regard to female suffragettes. And based on what the title says, you may or may not decide to look any of these up. What's even more interesting is this right here. 13 people have cited this article. If we click on here, we can see where. Some of them are things that you have access to. Whether in full text or in a partial view at Google Books. But this is just another way to find literature relating to your subject. And this cited by is one of the things that makes Google Scholar an improvement on JSTOR. JSTOR actually used to do this via Google Scholar, but for some reason they discontinued the service. Which is kind of a shame because it is an extremely quick way to find more literature. Now, of course, what you don't know is the nature of the citation. So, something that's been cited, like this book has been cited 61 times as far as Google Scholar can determine. That doesn't mean that this is a really good book. That could be 61 people saying that this is the worst book they ever read. You don't know. But a high citation number does tell you people are talking about this. People have read it. It's had some influence on the historiography. And you can see that the citation numbers given by Google Scholar do not match the ones provided by Web of Science. That's because Web of Science catalogs very few journals by comparison. It's not a web crawling service like Google Scholar, which does its best to bring up as much as possible. Web of Science is extremely limited in that way, and particularly with regard to the humanities. Web of Science is great if you're a biologist or a geneticist or a physicist. If you're a historian, Web of Science, not so useful. You're better off using Google Scholar, in fact. And you can already see, just by looking at the right-hand side here, that it's a much more comprehensive service than JSTOR. You got all of the Google Books that come up, plus articles that we have available via UGent, but not through JSTOR. And in comparison, relatively few things that we can access via JSTOR. Just on this one page, there's only one thing from JSTOR that we would be able to access. Instead, we have many more things available full text at UGent, or even on Preview at other places. So I would advise you that anytime you're researching a particular subject, rather than heading automatically to JSTOR, I would go to Google Scholar first. Because if you're logged in through UGentNet, you'll have access via JSTOR, but you'll also have access to things through other services that UGent has an association with. Not to mention book citations as well. Overall, Google Scholar is a lot more flexible, and they also offer a certain degree of personalized service. If you have a Google account, you can log on and save your citations. It will keep track of your citations for you, the same way that JSTOR does, but in this instance, on a much wider scale. So, just to recap, when you're using this, make sure that you're logged on to UGentNet. And if you want the advanced options, make sure that you're logged in personally via your Google account.